welcome to the second Business Development Club of 2022. If you don't know me, I am Paddy Woods and Director of Pimento Fuse and also head up the Marketing New Business for Pimento. For those that haven't been on previous calls, please use the chat box to ask questions. We want to make every session as interactive as possible, so please just ask questions and we'll bring them into the conversation. We're going to be recording today's event, and that's going to be available later today on our Pimento, or tomorrow on our Pimento video channel on YouTube. So let's get started. Today's session is all about creating and building the right partnership network. It's all about helping drive new business opportunities. Building partnerships and referrals is one of the key new business approaches for agencies and can account for a significant portion of new business leads. It's therefore really important that you spend the time investing in this approach. Quick plug for Pimento. This is one of the many reasons why Pimento exists. We're there to really help connect agencies together. But with this in mind, I'd like to introduce our panelists who are prolific in this space, both Pimento members, Nathan Lomax and Rob Morley. And Rob and David are not related, so before you ask any of those questions in the chat. So Nathan Lomax, a bit about him. I think probably everyone knows Nathan, but if you don't, Nathan is co-founder of Quickfire Digital. He is the leading innovation, he's leading innovation area of digital transformation and e-commerce. He's won numerous awards and most recently picked up the Rising Star Award in the European and UK Agency Awards of 2020. He's also a Beamer 100 Rising Star. He started his agency at 18 straight from school and rebranded to Quickfire Digital 3 years ago. Quickfire works with businesses to improve efficiency, profitability and scalability, and through the use of technology. He's the driving force behind Quickfire's growth and their collaboration with larger and larger e-commerce clients across the world. Outside of Quickfire, he does a huge amount, running his own podcast, Addicted to Business. He's a student mentor at University of East Anglia, area chairman of the charitable organisation Roundtable, and has set up 2 charities himself, the Giveaway Gang and Engage with Autism. And if you look at the testimonials on LinkedIn, they're all talking about how he's a connector and believes in paying it forward. Moving on to Rob. Rob is one of the founders of Fountain, a digital growth agency based in Norwich and Canada. Their mission is to take the risk out of marketing and deliver an exponential ROI to clients through accurate forecasting and data-driven decisions. They've won multiple Google Awards for business growth and search performance. Rob is a natural networker and enjoys building relationships with clients and fellow agency entrepreneurs. He says that the best part of his job is getting to meet business owners, learn how their business works, and help them find strategies to achieve their goals. He loves to discuss new business ideas and enjoys advising startups and scale-ups through various advisory groups. So they both said, please feel free to reach out to them after this call. They're happy to have connections and make conversation with you. So guys, Nathan, Rob, it is great to have you here. Welcome to the second BD Club.
Thank you. Quite the intro,
Thanks,
Paddy. Thank you.
I know. Sorry, I did cut it down from War and Peace. So apologies for that. So we've got a lot to get through. So the first question really is to Nathan. In terms of moving this forward, in your view, what makes a good partner?
It's a good one. I think that the framework for a good partner all starts around openness and willingness to listen to ideas and try new things. So first things first, is important to realize that it's not just agency partners we're looking at here. You've got strategic partners, you've got agency partners. So looking at strategic partners first, for us in the e-commerce space, who else can add to our offering without competing directly with what we do? Then when you look at agency, similar. So let's start with strategic. For us in e-commerce, it would be maybe Klarna or Nosto or PayPal or any of these companies you may have heard of that have a similar target audience to us, but don't offer the same solution. Taking it across to agency, we focus on the web development side. So is there an SEO agency, a PPC agency, a social agency? The frustration we have when building partnerships is that people don't give it the priority it deserves, and therefore they put a junior bod on partnerships and say, hey, work experience student, you're going to be doing partnerships, and therefore you can't have a founder-to-founder conversations. For me, the best partnership conversations are had when you're not just talking about partnership, ironically. It's not 30 minutes talking about how we're going to support each other. That's included, but it's also getting to know the owner and speaking founder to founder. So saying, okay, what are your wins? What are your challenges? Having a real authentic relationship that isn't purely commercially driven. Commercial opportunities will come out the back of it, but the focus should be on getting to know, like, and trust that individual. So when you're looking for partners, think about, do they share a similar value set to you? Could you go and have a cold beer with them after work? If so, then that's the first tick in the box. Secondly, do you have faith in the offering that they're delivering? Do they offer brilliant user experience? Do they offer brilliant PPC or a data-driven approach, whatever it is? Have you got faith in recommending them to your client, and will they add value to your client? The third thing to think about with partnership is whether there are multiple partners that what I call can play nicely in the sandpit. So sometimes when you're going into a business arrangement or talking to a client, you're introducing PPC partner, SEO partner, social partner. The challenge you've got is when people are full service. And what I mean by that is they're doing everything. It's very difficult, in my opinion, to partner with full service agencies because you don't know what slice of the pie they're doing. And therefore playing nicely in the sandpit becomes difficult because the full service agency does PPC, they do SEO, they do social, they start doing content. When your back's turned, they start pitching in web development, etc. It becomes very difficult. So the idea is to build a best-in-class team, and the way to pitch this into clients is a specialist rather than generalist approach. I've got a little captain's armband I normally have on my desk, and I say, I'll be the captain of this team. Let's get you the best defender, the best midfielder, and the best attacker. And in agency land, that's the best SEO agency, the best PPC, the best social, that can all come together to deliver a fantastic service. The final thing you've got to think about partnership is comms. So how can you create frequent and regular catch-ups to say, you know what, once a month, we're going to have some accountability. This is our content plan over the next 12 months. We're going to have a white paper. We're going to do a webinar together. We're going to do this. We're going to educate each other's audiences about our offerings. But at the same time, you've got to have accountability, and those monthly catch-ups deliver that, or quarterly catch-ups. Otherwise, what you'll find is lots of lovely conversations, or wouldn't it be nice to work together? No substance, because we all get busy, life takes over, and then you're not thinking, oh shit, I'm speaking to that person in 10 minutes, and I really need to do something before our next call. So with Rob and I, we will normally meet periodically for lunch or for beers or whatever, and just have a couple of actions that we'll take on to the next session. For example, have we got that breakfast event booked? How are we looking for numbers? What are we doing around a webinar we've got upcoming? Are you participating in a white paper? Whatever it is, something that makes sure that that conversation has some accountability and is not just a nice chat.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nathan. Rob, do you want to add anything to that? Or
I think Nathan's covered it there.
I think you have. I think that's our job done. As you said, I think you've already heard Nathan is prolific, and so is Rob at this in this act. They have really active partnership programs. Rob, in your opinion, why is it so important to have these programs for agencies?
Yeah, so Nathan touched on something which is really important, which is thinking about where leads actually come from. And we all know there's only a finite number of sources. So most agency owners love doing the networking, the speaking stuff, the socializing. But once you get that out of the way, what you're basically left with in terms of lead sources, clients, staff, and then outbound. Now, if you talk to agencies, outbound tends to be the sort of smaller percentage in terms of the ratio. So really, if you're not kind of working on partnerships, then you're sort of leaving quite a big source on the table. So one of the things that we discovered from like partnership leads is that, first of all, they tend to convert at a higher rate than other types of leads. I would say they're sort of on a par with client leads, and it doesn't take much to understand why that might be. It's because, they're warmer, there's an intro. Sometimes with the partner, if they intro you to a client, they kind of act as your mole, so they're gonna help you win it. So the other thing we noticed about partnerships is like the lead-in time is shorter as well. So we tend to close partnership leads faster. So they're really the sort of metrics that I think an agency can look at in terms of, I suppose, thinking about the selfish side of it. So just to kind of build on a couple of Nathan's points. So there are kind of other advantages. So obviously, the clues in the title, it's a partnership, that there needs to be kind of reciprocation there. That can start with, like marketing content, and that might then lead to pitching together. But hopefully what you end up with is a kind of agency village of specialists. And I think one of the advantages of, having, so many good specialists around you is that it exposes you to best practices within those agencies, but also maybe within verticals that you're targeting. And then if you look at, so to Nathan's point, yeah, it's not just partners don't have to be agencies. Like we've had partners that are consultants, trainers, tech platforms, SaaS companies, like that there can be an absolute range. And I think when you start getting into the sort of SaaS platform space in terms of partnership, they're the sort of partnerships that are going to raise your agency profile. And then I think going back to that point about the reciprocation, I think it's a really good exercise to kind of map your client's agency ecosystem. And if you start to understand who the good agencies are, like how well do you know them? Can you build a partnership? But also, can you bring in people from your agency village to kind of help your clients? And then that's where the leads start to go back and forth. So I'd argue some of those sort of side benefits, periphery benefits, you're not getting with other types of lead. So.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And Nathan, just going back to you, you talked about sort of the comms side of things. One of the things I have heard is you make about 200 to 300 calls a month. And I just want to, one, how do you find the time about doing that? But also the importance of wider communication. So it's not just calls, but what other things are you looking at doing in updating your partners with where you are and what you're up to?
For sure. So starting at the start, we were talking about reciprocity, and the reason for those calls is to remain what I call sticky. So when you're having that call, how do you become the point of reference? So when I'm talking to people, I have a 30-minute call, and I'm normally talking for 25 minutes about their business and how I can help them. So let's take agency partnerships, for example. Rob and I are chatting. I'm trying to talk for 25 minutes about Rob, about his pain points, about what keeps him up at night, about what he's frustrated about what's upset him recently. And then all I'm trying to do is listen, and give advice and keep him talking. And what's the frustration in the agency at the minute, Rob? What's, where are you going next as an agency? How can I help? If you go into partnerships thinking that you're going there to win work, they simply won't work. You have to change the mindset when you go into a partnership to think it's all about reciprocity, becoming sticky, paying it forwards, becoming a point of influence, and the work will come. You have to have faith in that system. If you go in going, I'm Nathan, I'm from Quickfire, we build Shopify websites. Rob, have you got any work for us? I dare say not only will it just be one call, but it'll be pretty short and it will come to nothing. So that's the first thing to consider. The other is around who moves first. So when you're building out this partnership plan, the biggest challenge is the first move. Imagine a game of chess. Who's going to take that first play? Who's going to make the first intro? The best way you can do this is by giving it structure and accountability. The lowest hanging fruit is probably come on a podcast with us, come on a joint webinar with us, write a chapter in our next ebook or Bible or whatever we're writing, do a guest blog for our website. It's a small touch point, but it's a first move that shows good intent. Then you start building reciprocity, and then they owe you. So if Paddy, if you and I are building a partnership, Paddy, why don't you write a guest blog on our site and we'll talk to our clients, or we're going to do an email this month. We're going to include Paddy in your wonderful services. Us making the first move, it's not a massive commitment, but at the same time, it does show. And now you automatically feel indebted. You're like, crumbs, he's done that for me. What am I going to do for him? The one tool to look at is called Crossbeam. Crossbeam allows you to match CRMs. So what you can do is Rob can upload his CRM, I can upload mine, and we can say, okay, what clients have we got in common and where have we got shared opportunities? So check out a platform called Crossbeam. Back to the 400 conversations. Start of the pandemic, like all of you, I'm like, shit, where is our next lead coming from? This is really scary. What are we going to do? I decided, Spencer Gallagher, a chap you may all know from Agency Economics, he wrote the book, blah, blah, blah. He talks about 50 meaningful conversations every month, and that had really helped us up to a point. However, now in lockdown, we were like, okay, how can we be front and center so that if anyone's looking for e-commerce or Shopify, they will think of us? The method was 400 conversations. So every day, 20 calls for 30 minutes at a time. So 10 hours a day, back-to-back calls. Do I recommend that to anyone? Absolutely not. And as David Morley will testify, I nearly killed myself. It was horrendous. But at the same time, we built some wonderful partnerships and we've evolved that model, and I'll share that with you shortly. To start with, though, the magic of those calls wasn't in the calls themselves. Yes, there was 25 minutes of me asking them questions, and then they finally like, Nathan, I know you've got to go, but quickly, what do you do? And it's like, oh, don't worry, we'll save that for another time. But just quickly, Nathan, Quickfire Digital, Shopify based. If you come across anything e-commerce focused, let us know. The main focus was the bit afterwards, which was the 5 introductions. So after every call, I'd have a chat with Rob and I'd say, Rob, lovely chat to you, blah, blah, blah. I tell you what, there's 5 people in my network I think would be really beneficial for you to talk to. This person, this person, this person, this person, that person. And they're either clients or they're prospects or they're partners, or they're just ways that can help Rob and pay it forwards. That was the real magic. Now, going forwards, there's also a piece around time and place. If you did that today, in today's world, would it work? Sometimes I get frustrated with just random introductions to, hey, here's a video production agency that you've never heard of, and they work with clients in the pharmaceutical space, and that's wonderful, but it's not a client set, so it's not as relevant. So the questions I would ask people is, what's your target vertical or target market? Do you operate in terms of a ICP for a client? Do you have an ICP that you're looking to attract? What agencies do you typically play nicely with? And if you could choose one client in the world, who would they be and why? When I know that information, I can then tailor those introductions to make sure if Rob is looking for e-commerce businesses, I can say, Rob, you've got to talk to ShipStation that specializes in fulfillment. Let me do an intro to you. There's a lovely company over here that talk about loyalty, which would be great for some of your e-com clients. And there's an agency over here. Finally, going back to the 50 conversations, the challenge was with the 400 conversations, it just wasn't sustainable. And what you would have is lots of lovely conversations, not enough action. It did mean we had the healthiest pipeline we've ever had in the middle of a pandemic, but what it didn't mean is that it could be sustained. So what we've done is turn that into events. Now we have lunches where we get 30 or 40 people together at one time. And some of you will be coming to our next lunch, which is in a month or so's time, I believe. The whole point of those is that you're behind the lunch. People know you've organized the lunch. People are grateful for you doing it. Everyone pays for themselves. It's not like I'm sponsoring the lunch, but at the same time, it's a chance for me to engage with everyone in that room for 5 minutes at a time and have a meaningful conversation and make them feel like the only person in the world, but I haven't got to do that for 30 minutes on a call. So think about how you can then be smarter with those conversations once you've had your initial conversation, to have follow-up conversations that are a bit more targeted. I hope it helps.
That does. Rob, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say I've saved hundreds of pounds on therapists because of Nathan. He's the only person who's listening to me in my life at the moment. So.
Yes, and you're both out for lunch after this, I believe.
Yeah, and I'm going to pour my heart out. So.
Brilliant. I think, Rob, sort of coming to you, that there's, as we've alluded to, there is lots of different types of partnerships, and it's how do you go about sort of working which ones work best for you, whether they're sort of, are they going to be those direct referrals? Actually, are they worth it having joint sort of content development side of things, which you talked about? And then also, actually, when do you start looking at joint pitching and going to clients together to pitch on new business?
Yeah, so I mean, Nathan touched on a couple of points which are really relevant. I think what Nathan described there is like he's got a system in place for what is essentially doing due diligence on a partner, and that is what we do. So, you know, partnerships take time, and they can take a while to form, and it's generally kind of relative to the size. So I'd say, and we're going to talk about this in a bit, Paddy. So much larger partners take a much larger amount of time. But in the early stages, you are doing your due diligence, and a partner should be doing that when they're thinking about you as well. And it's really trust and competency, I think, in the early stages. So that's the early stage stuff that we're doing. You know, are they any good? You know, how can we prove that we're good at what we do? You know, who do we know that knows them? Like how have they come to us? But I think the big thing that Nathan mentioned is reciprocation. Like that's the thing you're kind of looking for, and that's how I assess like whether I think the partnership's going to go forward. So I think last year, like I certainly didn't make as many calls as Nathan, but I definitely argue that the majority of the early stage chats I had, I would say the attitude from the agency or the consultant was, what have you got for me? Great. Joint venture marketing, what are you going to put into this pot? There was only a few select people who were kind of riffing on ideas and going, oh yeah, like we're both in pharma, we could do this, we could do that. That's a really interesting idea. So really I'm looking for that reciprocation, that kind of can do attitude. They're thinking in the same terms as us, and that will kind of dictate like where a partnership will go. And then you can start to kind of weed out the ones where you don't feel it's really gonna go anywhere from a sort of content development and pitching point of view. I think in terms of pitching, we like to look for the very best agency in the space where we can, especially if we're bringing them into partners. And there's certain pitches we did last year where you just tell straight away we're dealing with absolute A players in terms of what they do. And when you see those early signs that you're dealing with an agency that knows how to deal with prospects, they know how to ask the right questions, you can see the way that they plan their pitches, it just gives you that sense of confidence. And I think that sort of radar for, are they going to cause me problems? Are they any good? That starts to diminish because you're seeing that competency kind of come through in the pitch process. So I think that's really, the biggest thing in terms of thinking about the content side and then the pitching side. I think in terms of like tech partners, I mean, tech partners are interesting because I think what they can do, a win-win is where they feed you clients and they raise your brand. So like we had a couple of years where we were just doing events at Google, and Google would send people and they partner with us, and they obviously can't give you clients direct because that'd be a conflict of interest. But what it allowed us to do was to put prospects in the room and then do high quality events, and that sort of built pipeline for a couple of years. So that was quite useful. But I think with tech partners, you could also ask the same questions. Like some platforms, some SaaS companies are really hot on doing joint venture content and events with their partners, and I think that's always an interesting question to ask. I mean, obviously the benefits of the software or the platform has to come first, but I think it's really nice when they're sort of keen to do something. So that's good. I guess another consideration, which maybe we haven't talked about, is money. So some partners want a kickback, and I think that's a case by case decision as to whether you want to do that. So like we've done that in the past. We've paid sort of partners, we've given them a kickback. We're sort of happy to do it, but I think obviously the thing you've got to watch out for, we always chat with our FD and just make sure that the margins work on that side. So
brilliant, thank you, Nathan. I just want to bring you in. Just before the call started, you were talking about, you showcased your sort of strategic partnership matrix that you have. I wonder if you just share sort of the way you go about sort of building that.
Yeah, sure. So essentially what I did, I was in two minds whether to share this or not, but essentially I'm a massive believer in oversharing, both internally with the team and also with clients and partners, etc. So here is warts and all the system, and it's not perfect by any stretch, but this is what we do. It's another way of showing intent when you're going into your partnership conversations to look super organized, to be like, not only am I serious about this conversation, but this is what I'm going to do, and these are the actions I'm going to take. So what we did with strategic partnerships, and you could do the same with agency partnerships. I hope you can all see the screen there. But we've got the name down the left-hand side, the lead contact within that business, their email, the service that they provide. So when someone says to me, Nathan, do you know anyone that can help us with subscription? I'd go straight to my sheet and go, bang, you need to speak to Ryan Forster from Recharge. Let me make an intro. The monthly catch-ups we need to populate. What I'll quickly do is, hopefully you can all see my screen, just my face. If I show you this, once a month I have partner catch-ups. So if I show you these, hopefully it's a bit dark, but you should be able to see there. Every 30 minutes throughout the day, there is a different partner which we've got a call with. Okay, so there's Recharge, there's Nosto, there's all those people for our accountability calls we talked about earlier. But showing the sheet again, what I've done here is I've then mapped out all the different campaigns we've got across the year. So are they going to do a lunch and learn in our agency? For anyone that's working with SaaS partners or tech solutions or anything like that, lunch and learns are a great way for your agency to be educated on the service offering. There's nothing worse than when the owner founder knows everything about a solution, but actually as soon as a client starts engaging with the team, they don't have access or know the kind of partner, etc. So what we're trying to get is everyone to have eyes on the partners that we recommend. Same with agencies, actually. It's no good just me knowing about founders and none of our team, because I'm not necessarily getting asked for SEO help. Normally it's the client services team, so they need to have relationships as well, and that's something we might talk about later too. It's not just about myself and Rob having a relationship. It's about the client services teams in either agency having a relationship. It's about the people on the front line having a relationship. Maybe it's an internal Slack chat, whatever it is. How can you build deeper relationships that aren't solely found as a founder if you're going to take this agency partnership further? What we've got in here is a white paper. Are they in it this year? Are they in it next year? Are we going to do a LinkedIn Live together? Have we built a partner portal? There's one called partnerpage.io, which seems to be a fairly cost-effective way. I think it's even free to build out a bit of a partner page on your website. It might be worth having a look at. Have they written a guest blog? We're putting together some Shopify Awards. Have they entered the Shopify Awards? Are they sponsoring them? Hot off the press, we're building a partner advent calendar where our retailers are going to get 25 standard doors, but not only will there be a chocolate, there'll be access to 20% off Klarna or whatever it's going to be. So are they taking part in that campaign? We're running events, and one thing I'll talk about events is around consistency. So try and find a venue that is exclusive. So you're going up the Shard, or you're doing something that makes them feel special. You're not just going to the local pub, but at the same time is manageable in terms of costs. What we've done is said, okay, let's get breakfast booked. So throughout the year, we've got breakfast once a month in partnership with the team at Fountain at the Ivy Club in Covent Garden. Private room, feels exclusive. But the magic is that the app partner has got 15 minutes to speak, but they're sponsoring the whole occasion. So for Rob and I, there's not massive outlay in terms of risk and cost. All we've got to do is fill the room with relevant prospects, which again is just feeding our pipeline to say, okay, well, this person is about to close, but they're not closed yet. Let's add some more value by inviting them to an event. We've also got an e-commerce Bible we're building. So have we got them invited to that? And any other campaigns we just add to that. So hopefully that gives you guys an insight into the typical partner plan that we build. And I suggest you do similar to agency and then just do a kind of ticks and crosses. Are they in there? Have I done that? Have I done that? Are they invited to that? Have I seen them here? And then you'll see your gaps and be able to fill them in. Last thing on this, I mentioned an agency lunch where agencies get together, share ideas, etc. The next one is 22nd of Feb. David Morley's coming. It's actually David Morley's birthday on that day. So if you do come, you must bring him a card and present. Otherwise, you're not welcome in.
Got to buy him a drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I just add to that, Paddy? That that it's a really good point about that. Those sorts of meaningful conversations across partners can be spread across the agency. Like it doesn't just have to sit with one person. Obviously Nathan's very good at it, and you can kind of see that he is thinking about everyone else in the agency. So for us, like I might have 40 conversations a month, but maybe only half of them are what I'd call meaningful. Like there's something going on, it's moving the needle, it's strategic. But then there's 5 or 6 other people in the agency who are doing the same thing. I suppose in the latter stages, this is kind of more a down the road point. You kind of want to spread that out amongst the agency, and that could be part of succession planning, because you don't really want all of those relationships, all those partner relationships sitting with one person, because I think that's a risk. So it is about trying to spread them out. And you'll be surprised. I mean, if you take our FD, he's absolutely brilliant. He'll be the first to tell you he is an introvert, but what he's trying to do is maybe set up a sort of an FD roundtable where he's talking with FDs from other agencies, and you can take that wisdom and just think across the agency, like, who has time. Like there'll be obvious candidates for like building partnerships, like obviously founders, head of biz dev, account directors, but there might also be people in the agency who have the time to build valuable relationships that are not just good for the agency, but also might be good for their sort of personal development, their professional development.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I think, Rob, I just want to sort of bring into the big partnership that you've been working on with the Nielsen IQ Brand Bank, which I think took about a year to sort of get off the ground, and we launched January this year. It'd be great to understand from how this came about, how you built the partnership, but also the time and effort it took to actually really get the process off the ground, because it's a really unique opportunity. So just really to help people on this call really understand sort of how they can really develop that strategic partnership and the commercial opportunity at the end, really. Yeah,
so that was an interesting one. So it actually came from a former employee. So she left on really great terms, and I guess that's really the best present that a former employee can give you is an intro to someone in her family who worked at Brand Bank. Really that was an oversight on our part, that we didn't recognise Brand Bank because they're just down the road as a potential partner. So we were kind of lucky. But I think back then, if we'd been building out more of a kind of active sort of partnership strategy, we may well have highlighted them. So the first thing I'd say about it is that it took way longer than we thought. We obviously did the qualifying, how big is the opportunity? They're a 55 million pound company, part of a parent company doing 6 billion. So the partnership is about sort of doing SEO for their clients. So it was obvious that it's potentially a huge partnership. So I think, the upside, that's the upside. The upside is the potential. It's the potential for us to scale. It took, I would say, hundreds of hours. I don't have the exact number, but we were thinking, it's going to take 4 to 6 months. It ended up taking about 12 months. And at the end of it, what we've ended up with, I think, is what a corporate might say is an actual proper partnership. So we talk about partnerships maybe in terms of agencies referring each other leads, but actually a partnership really is, you've got a contract, there's deliverables, there's T's and C's that had to be fleshed out. There was legal costs. There was also like training, which we did get paid for, so that's all good. But as you uncover these things, you start to realize that right, we've got to put X amount of hours to kind of train the team. And I think where you've got a partnership, and it doesn't have to be large, but if it ends up being in the category of channel sales, i.e. that entity is selling what you do, that is a whole nother way of selling. I mean, even if you are a brilliant salesperson, it makes sense if you've never done channel sales or you've never had to manage a partner who is selling on your behalf, is to do a course, read a book, speak to people who do it, because they'll sort of give you wisdom on how you make sure that your product is part of that offering. Because to a company like Nielsen, like we're one little, for us that's a big partnership. To them we are an important but just another product in their offering. So part of that process, I think one of the important things was understanding the motivation from a commercial aspect, but also from the point of view of sales, because you've got to understand like what motivates their sales team, what do they sell, how do they view your product. And when you start to kind of dig into that, as you might say a normal prospect, you start to reveal things that will turn into your training and will turn into your kind of future comms with the partner. So what I would say, I think, absolutely, I don't want to paint a negative picture. Go after big partners, like have some audacious targets. If you've got, say, Nathan's spreadsheet and you're working in that way, it's like a pipeline. You're going to have your meat and potatoes kind of prospects. You've got your smaller ones, and then you'll have a few biggies that just take longer. And I think your strategic partnership should be a bit like that. So I think if you do the due diligence, you ask the right questions, you make sure it's a win-win, then it makes sense to go after it. But it's just being aware that it will probably take longer than you think, and definitely think about the training and how do you make sure that they're going to continue to sell your products into the future.
No, I think that's really interesting. I think just helping on that side of things, I remember the challenge of it, you're working on their terms and their sort of time scales and not anyone else's, and you want to drive it forward. But I remember it's something else came up, so it pushes everything back down the road, and it is quite frustrating, but actually it's generally getting it in place is really rewarding, and I think it's something to celebrate around. So yeah, congratulations on that one.
Thanks very much.
I'm just saying, if anyone's got any questions, please add them to the chat. We're sort of running out. I've sort of got a few more questions to ask, but it'd be great to get you guys involved on the call. So last sort of one of the questions is Jill's just put one in actually.
Yeah.
Books. You mentioned books you read on channel marketing. Do you have any recommendations?
I do. It's this one. It's here's one I prepared earlier. It's Making Channel Sales Work by Marcus Cauchi. So I would bet money that at least 5% of the people on this call know who Marcus Cauchi is. He's a sales trainer. He's quite prolific on LinkedIn, but really what his book is about pure channel sales, and there's some really great tips in there. So
brilliant, thank you. Just moving on, top tips and any recommendations and strategies, and just from your own perspective, we've covered a lot, and I think it's wrapping up. What are the 5 key things to start your partnership program up, what should an agency be doing? Nathan, do you want to jump in and start that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the first thing is that if you go in with authenticity and be yourself, then you'll be amazed what you build outside of just a partnership. I saw Sam here from Salamander, and if you look at that example and the partnership we built with their wonderful team based in Windsor, and I think up north in Scotland as well, the other week we were at a book launch with Christine, the founder. She launched a new book, and all of a sudden you're building friendships, not just partnerships. So that's one thing to look at, is go in, be yourself, be genuine, be humble, try and help, and you will build far more than just a commercial relationship. Part two is around staying front and center, and that's the trick to all of this. You will have a lovely conversation with someone today. You will think, when you're wrapped up in that moment, this person's going to change my life, it's going to propel our agency, and then I can guarantee emails will come in, you'll have to pick the children up from school, whatever it is, life will take over, and all of a sudden you'll forget about it. So how can you be front and center at all times so people are knowing and thinking about you? The third is really about building a 20 or 30 super connector, little black book that you can refer back to, that you can really develop and look after those people, whether it be inviting them to lunch, taking them for dinner, buying them a book that you see that's interesting, doing something that you know will keep you in the front and center. And the way I look at this is more of a dartboard. Imagine your traditional dartboard. You want to be in everyone's red circle of the dartboard. How can you be in that small percentile that whenever they've got an exclusive event or something else, you're one of the first names on the team sheet for them to be involved in? Number 4 is just remember it's a reflection on your own brand. Any introduction that you make is a reflection on you personally as a personal brand and the business as your own brand. You won't get it right every time. Don't go into this thinking every agency partnership you build and every referral you make is going to be successful. There have been plenty where they perhaps haven't delivered, and there's been several circumstances in the way or whatever. And it's important that you develop a relationship with the agency that doesn't just throw them under the bus. You're in this together and you're there to work out where it went wrong. Bit of a post-mortem or a wash-up. What happened here? Why didn't it go to plan? Actually, Nathan, client was really difficult. They kept changing their mind. They've gone massively over budget. Okay, these things happen. I understand. I'm not going to chuck out that partner from my ecosystem because of that, versus actually, Nathan, we're just massively under-resourced. We're having massive problems. A couple of our team are ill, etc., etc. The final point from today is just around structure. We're all busy running a day job. It's super hard to have enough hours in the day, etc. Make sure you're efficient with your partnerships, but you work them and give them the right amount of time. So don't just have conversations for an hour. If I could give you one bit of advice, 30 minutes or 25 minutes is absolutely enough. There's enough time for small talk and there's enough time for action to be done. You do not need an hour, because what you'll spend is 35 minutes talking about everything else in the world, about the football last night, about all sorts, and then you won't get the business done. So 30 minutes is enough time, in my opinion, to have a good enough conversation to deliver action. And there would be my 5 top tips.
Brilliant. Rob, do you want to add your 5? If you can.
Yeah, no, I am young, and I'm just going to build on a couple of Nathan's, because you know, they're all exactly correct. So I think starting from scratch, that point I was making earlier, it's always a good exercise to think about where your leads have come from. So it's Feb now, but you know, look at last year. Where did leads come from? How many actually came from genuine partnerships? You know, if it's below 5-10%, then arguably like there's work to be done. So then it's like sitting down and planning. So we're talking about active partnerships here. So yeah, think about like the way Nathan structured his spreadsheet, strategic partners, like who do we know, who's on our network at the moment. Don't forget about your clients, your staff. They all have connections as well that could be potential partnerships. I think it's important to think about the resource, like don't get stuck, don't get into a position where all of a sudden there's loads of agency time like being spent on like joint venture marketing, but you can't actually dedicate that time. So I think about how much time can you dedicate. So it might be in your head, and I think this is point number 3, is treat it a bit like a sales pipeline. Like you're going to have quite a few conversations at the start. You're going to convert a few. So if in your plan you're like, right, I want like 5 good agency partnerships, a couple of super connectors, and 1 like tech platform, and I'm just throwing that out there for conversation, then it might be that you could end up having 25 or 30 conversations to make those work. And the other 2 things I'd say is don't just go along with a partnership. Like if they're taking you down the road, if it doesn't feel right, and you think you don't feel like your agency is going to reciprocate, and no one's heart is going to be in it, then just say no. So as much as you've got to have that impetus, that, you know, that attitude that like Nathan has, get out there, also know when to say no and just kind of cut relationships off, because we've definitely done that, where we've just kind of gone along with it when we should have just said no, really. And then I think the thing about super connectors is the best super connectors we've had are ones where we actually brought them in, because usually a super connector has a job. So we had someone who was a trainer, and we brought him in because we actually needed that training. So if you find someone who is a super connector and they also have a valuable service and offering, think about how you can get that into your agency, to your client's agency, because that's when it goes out of the park. Like when you pay them and make friends of them, they're the ones that absolutely deliver like 6 figures plus in pipeline value. So they're my top tips.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm going to start bringing some people in. Stephen James, hello. Can you unmute yourself? Do you want to bring your question in, please? Just some other people talking up.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, you can listen to me as opposed to someone else, my dulcet tones. No, my question's simple. It's how do you assess quality of your potential partners?
Who wants to go first?
I'm happy to jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
So yeah, look, I think in terms of quality, it's kind of almost like how clients look for us. It's thinking about, has it come through your trusted network? What do people say on a kind of one-to-one basis about that agency? Like if someone said, look, these guys are amazing at Shopify, they're really good at what they do. I think that due diligence piece, again, it's almost like finding a supplier. So it's, you know, can you find reviews? Like, what do their awards look like? Do you have any shared connections on LinkedIn? So I think that's one part of it. And then the bit I was kind of saying earlier, which is you just get that sense as you're building the relationship that they're competent. So, you know, if their standards are below yours in terms of how you relate to clients, how you treat them, how you run a pitch process, then maybe you need to cut that off earlier. But you know, like we've pitched with 1 or 2 agencies where I was like blown away by how good they were, and it's no great surprise that they were often double, triple the size in terms of headcount and revenue. So they were just more mature. They just got to that point where they had everything down cold. So it was just really easy to kind of, I suppose, take what they're good at, assimilate it into our agency, and then there's like no questions asked about whether they're going to be a good partner. So,
and backing that up, I think it's before you start, it's assessing how you can look on your partner's website, who are the clients they work with, are they writing any interesting content that's relevant to what you're saying, and so on and so forth. So you start actually scoring them before you actually even make the first introduction and connection.
The only thing I'd add to that, Paddy, as well, is just like Rob says, if you find a test project or something a bit smaller you can get them on, then absolutely do that. But also just go with your gut. 9 times out of 10, you will judge someone within the first like 30 seconds of conversation. You'll know, is this person a serious player? Do they talk my language? Am I going to be prepared to work with them? 9 times out of 10, when I've gone with my gut, it's been absolutely spot on. So yeah, just don't ignore your gut when it tells you this person's a bit shady, or be wary. Normally that's for very good reason.
Brilliant, thank you. Nish, thank you, Stephen. Nish, do you want to unmute yourself and bring yourself into the call?
Yeah, Paddy. Just a quick one. I bet we've all had this. There is a person that you contact. They really want to talk to you, but whenever you try to call them, they're always too busy, or they're too busy to reply. How do you get around that? I know there is not going to be one trick fits all, but
Nick, for me, I would say, is the proposition or what you're offering strong enough to make them want to call? Like, if they want you that badly, then they'll make the call, right? So I appreciate that's a little bit cold and it feels a bit hurtful. It's like, well, I might be a really nice bloke and everything else, but at the end of the day, it's maybe not compelling enough for them to pick up the phone. And if it was that urgent, they would call. The other thing is just to try a different channel. There is nothing that frustrates me more than when you hear someone going, well, I've emailed them back and they haven't come back to me. Well, perhaps email isn't an appropriate channel. Have you called them? Have you gone to their office? Have you done something a bit different? Like, there are other channels that exist. WhatsApp, bizarrely, while probably not the most professional channel, often opens the most doors in terms of client not responding or partner not responding. You drop them on WhatsApp, they can't ignore it. Drop them a Facebook Messenger, request whatever, they can't ignore it. So start thinking about different channels to go at rather than just email, because I'm sure like you, I'm swamped with emails, and sometimes I will miss one, I won't go back to it. It doesn't feel super relevant. And also sometimes you can sniff maybe desperation, or maybe that someone's looking at it all from their side. So I love getting on calls and helping people and meet new people, but sometimes you get a message on LinkedIn that says, Nathan, I would love to talk to you about our agency and what we do and how we can add value to your clients. Not interested. Nathan, I would love to talk to you about some of our clients that I think might be a really good fit for you. I've got a couple that are looking for Shopify at the moment. Could we have a chat? All of a sudden I'm engaged, I'm jumping on the call. Whereas, Nathan, this is what I want to sell to your clients. Is like, really? I've got 1,000,001 things I want to do, and that is not one of them.
Brilliant. Does that help?
It does. It ties in very well with something we were talking about a while ago, Paddy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Different approaches. Yeah. Great stuff. Thank you.
Fantastic. Sarah Musgrave. Hello.
Hiya, Sarah from Clicky Media, and thanks to everyone for their insights today. So I'm in the process of setting up a series of webinars and events just to encourage basically more partnerships and kind of engaging the partners we do work with. So I just wondered, in terms of the events and webinars that you guys have run, have you noticed any like trends or anything that's worked well for yourselves?
What sector are you focused in, Sarah?
Predominantly SEO and CRO.
Certainly from my side, it would be talking about the future. Everyone's attracted by new and shiny. It actually depends, in my opinion, on the type of person, the ICP you're going after. If you're going after owner founder, methods to improve bottom line, improve CRO, how can I double my revenue without spending more money? Those kind of things are more CFO, CEO related. If it's marketing manager, marketing exec, etc., we're talking about the future. We're talking about how crypto can, or NFTs, or the metaverse is going to change their world or whatever. We're talking new and shiny to really engage them and to prick their ears up and for them to feel super important. So there's different messages and different topics for different ICPs. But I would say certainly talking more about the future, maybe a reflection on the past, but not too much in the past. We spend our whole lives looking at the day to day. So having a chance to attend an event to kind of work on the business rather than in the business is what I would suggest.
Thank you, that's really helpful.
Yeah,
I think sorry, go on, Rob.
Sorry. Oh,
Up to
thanks.
you,
Yeah. So yeah, a couple of things. I think just as another theme, I mean, if you're kind of in that performance space, so you've got the advantage of being able to, talk about like revenue, sales, like the hard numbers, the bottom line stuff. And I think that can always be a winner, especially if you relate it to a sector, especially a sector where maybe like performance isn't a kind of strong narrative in the marketing universe. Maybe something like pharmacy. I'm just saying that off the top of my head. I think the other thing, whether you're doing like offline or webinars, it can be really beneficial to like have a partner agency, and that's where the partnership bit, like all the stuff we've talked about, starts to come into play. So like we've done, the events we did at Google, like often what we do, we'd bring in like product development or a really great kind of branding creative agency. Something that was complementary, like a CRM agency is hugely complementary to what you do because they kind of pick up where you end. Have them as a speaker, have you as a speaker. At Google, we had Google as well. So that's just something to think about, is like, actually, do you want two partners, someone super prestigious, maybe an agency partner, and then you guys, and then it's just like a total value add across the board. And then that way you're kind of sharing the burden of the marketing. And you're sharing the burden across the board, but you can all still market to post event like everyone, or like on that list. So
yeah,
I think just wanted to bring back what Nathan was saying, which is actually, do you understand the personas of your client, and do you understand sort of what their habits are, what their interests are, and sort of build those out as well? Because I think that is sort of a key area. Once you know that, you can actually share those with your partners, and you are actually looking at, okay, what is the audience we're trying to connect to? Let's have a look, and then we can build out and see what they're talking about, what their needs are and stuff like that. So we can actually really bring that and hone that down.
Great, thank you, it's really helpful.
Thank you. I think we're sort of rapidly running out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to add into this sort of mix? I think from my perspective, it's really starting making sure that you understand who your potential partners are. So you had to do some research up front to find out what are the ones you want to really engage with. It's building those plans out, and then it's actually started really building that authenticity and looking for that reciprocity, if I can get that out. But I think that's sort of the key things. It's as you say, Nathan, I think you said at the beginning, is do you want to go to the pub with them at the end of the day? And I think that's that's where the cultural fit comes in as well. And I think that's key. But is there anything else you'd like to add as well?
No, I don't think so from my side. I hope everyone's found it useful. Please do connect on LinkedIn and let's have a conversation. Both Rob and I are always up for helping other agencies, and there's the whole community of reciprocity, not just to support each other with leads, etc., but just to support each other with day-to-day agency life. It can be tough if you're a solo owner founder, or actually maybe there's a couple of you. Sometimes you have great agency days, sometimes you have difficult agency days. So understanding there's communities like Pimento there to not just pass work, but to pass challenges, frustrations, celebrate wins. Sometimes if it's just you, there's not everyone bigging you up saying, well done, or that's great, or whatever. So use this network, not just to pass each other work, but to almost build that kind of advisory board, if you like, that you can bounce things around and say, can you help me with this? I'm stuck with this. Or guys, I've just won a £1 million deal and I'm super excited and I just want someone to share it with.
Yeah, I just echo that. I think, Nathan and I, like we're going for lunch later. It's that point about going for a beer. We're both the same in that regard, in that, anyone who's on the call wants to email us, contact us on LinkedIn, ask questions, we'll get back to you. I know, especially it can be tough on that first £1 million. So the agencies on the call that they're trying to get to that £1 million turnover point, it's a slightly different game. So if anyone's got any particular questions around that, then yeah, feel free to contact me.
Brilliant. I'm going to bring David Morley in. David.
Hi guys, thank you very much for your time. It's been really useful to get your insight, and as I say, you two are really great in the world of networking. But one other thing I was just going to raise, do you think we're getting back to more face-to-face contact now? Do you think people are starting to be less concerned and getting, you're meeting up for lunch today? Are you finding that there's more propensity to have face-to-face meetings rather than just doing it on a Zoom call or whatever?
Yeah, certainly from my side, there are more people keen to meet and do things face to face. I think the big thing we take for granted is the time for travel. Like now we're going to go and see Rob, and normally I'd have back-to-back meetings, but now I've got to have half an hour first to get in the car, to park the car, to get to the restaurant, etc. So that's just something that COVID kind of took away, but now we've got to remember that needs to be factored in. I think there's some people that are still a bit skeptical, but most people we're talking to are itching to get back out. The only thing to be mindful of is we've organized our first retail breakfast with the guys at Fountain, and we're super excited, and we've booked them all out for the year, and we've got all the partners lined up, and it's already organized. But in our excitement, the first one is on like the 23rd of Feb or something. It's bank holiday, or kind of not bank holiday, but a half term for many people. So just be mindful when you're doing that. People's mindset has massively shifted to being more lifestyle focused and thinking about the children and everything else. So gone are the days where I think agencies are going to be out till 3-4 in the morning. There might still be, and I hope they still be on the right occasion, but at the same time, people are far more mindful of their home environment and everything else. And therefore just be mindful of, if you're going to book a face-to-face, there might be challenges around kids' holidays and children's pickup times and drop off at schools and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think we've got to be very mindful of people's time nowadays, much more than we probably have done in the past. But just so you know, we're starting to plan our face-to-face sort of 6 p.m. clubs again. So there should be some news coming out in the next week or so for our first one, and we're really excited that we're going to be able to do this. I think we've just got to get on with it now and start meeting people face-to-face again. So we're looking forward to it. So thanks both of you for your time today. Thanks, Paddy, and thanks to Ralph for one of his amazing drawings again. Thank you for that, Ralph. Paddy, back over to you, mate, to finish off.
Thank you. Rob, Nathan, as David said, thank you very much. I think hopefully that was an enlightening session for everyone. I think there's a real lot to do, and there's a lot of opportunity about building your partnership side of things out. We're going to be posting this video on YouTube later today, so watch the space for this. I'd also, as you can see, Ralph from Purple Heron has done a great job as a image that will be shared later today as well in the email we send out. Another fantastic job, Ralph, so thank you very much. Couple of other things to mention. Our next BD Club is on the 23rd of March. In that session, we're going to be talking about actually protecting IP. It's a big discussion, a topic at times, but it's we're going to be working with Clarion, and they're going to be bringing and talking with some of their lawyers about sort of the role of IP and how agencies can go about protecting it. We are also delighted to announce earlier this week, we actually, for the first time, we've got the Pimento Alliance of Independent Agencies and Agency Nomics are coming together to host an event to support the UK independent agencies. It's the inaugural UK Independent Agencies Conference, and it's taking place face-to-face at the Montcalm Marble Arch Hotel on the Thursday, the 22nd of September this year. So we've got early bird tickets available, which is in the link Teresa just shared now. So please do sign up, book your place, because it's going to be a really enlightening session. In addition to anyone who's looking, we've got exhibition space for professional services members or professional services businesses to sort of talk to independent agencies. So if you want more information around that and sponsorship opportunities, then please contact Stephen Knight, and we'll share the email with that later today as well. But thank you all for your time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the next session on the 23rd of March.